Cadets handed the old veteran a foreign sniper rifle for fun, but his firing skills shocked them. Everyone assumed the old man's trembling hands meant weakness, but they were about to discover those hands once held the fate of entire battlefields. The humiliation began in broad daylight, under the scorching sun on the Academy's training range, where a group of fresh cadets lingered around a rack of weapons they barely knew how to respect. And in the middle of them stood a thin, gray-haired veteran, a man they'd invited over with mocking smiles, never expecting him to fight back with anything but silence. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing who's listening. His name was Walter Briggs, 74, a retired Army marksman who now spent his mornings walking past the academy just to hear the familiar clatter of training rifles. The cadets noticed him hovering near the fence, his faded ball cap pulled low, the brim frayed by sun and time. One of them nudged another and whispered a joke too loudly, as if daring him to hear. And he did. He always did. They called him over for fun, pretending politeness while exchanging grins. Then they handed him a foreign sniper rifle, a heavy, worn Dragunov, as if offering a toy to a child they expected to fail. The air around them shifted, dust swirled along the ground, brushing at Walter's boots like a warning. Even the range supervisor paused, watching from afar, sensing the tension but unsure if he should intervene. Walter felt the weight of their expectations, or rather their lack of them. His palms were dry, not trembling from fear, but from memory. He remembered mountains. He remembered wind slicing across valleys. He remembered holding his breath not for sport, but to save men who trusted him with their lives. And yet here, under this bright sky, he faced a new kind of battleground. Pride versus dignity. "Go on, old-timer," one cadet said. "Show us what shooting looked like in your century." A few others laughed, not cruelly, but carelessly. And sometimes, that hurts even more. Walter lifted the Dragunov. It wasn't the rifle he'd trained with decades ago, but it carried the same soul, the same quiet promise that skill wasn't born from youth, but from discipline. He didn't rush, he didn't flex. He simply felt the world narrow into that familiar thin line between focus and silence. More cadets drifted over, forming a loose semicircle. The murmurs rose. The air stilled. Even the birds stopped chattering, as if waiting for something they instinctively sensed. He took a breath, then another, and with a calmness none of them expected, he fired. The shot cracked through the range, like a whip of certainty. A second passed, then another. Someone gasped. The distant steel target, barely visible to the cadet's young eyes, rang with a clean, perfect strike that sent vibrations humming through the ground. Walter didn't even lower the rifle before he fired again, and again, each bullet stitching the same point, forming a cluster so tight that even seasoned instructors rarely achieved it. The crowd shifted from laughter to stunned silence. A cadet's water bottle slipped from his hand. Another took off her sunglasses, just to make sure she wasn't imagining the impossible. And for Walter, every heartbeat carried the echo of a life he thought he'd left behind, until this very moment reminded him that some callings never fade. "He's grouping them," someone whispered. "He's not just grouping them," the range supervisor murmured as he walked closer. "He's printing a signature." When Walter finally lowered the rifle, the wind picked up again, brushing gently across his face, as if saluting an old friend. The cadets stared at him. The weight of who he truly was settling heavily on their shoulders. Not a relic, not a joke. A veteran who had earned every wrinkle, every scar, every tremor that came, not from age, but from survival. One cadet stepped forward, shame softening his expression. "Sir, how long were you a marksman?" Walter smiled faintly. "Long enough to know bragging ruins good shooting, and humility keeps you sharp." They didn't laugh this time. They listened. Because in that moment, the academy yard wasn't filled with students and an old man, it was filled with respect. The kind forged only when truth cuts through arrogance like a clean shot through steel. Because courage doesn't retire, it simply waits for the moment it's needed again, and somewhere between the dust and the sunlight, Walter's hands no longer looked old at all. If this story moved you, share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that honor quiet courage and everyday heroes.